Standing desk. Where do you need to be? You need to be there. Good morning, people. Let's warm it up with a little Buckethead for you. Or something like that. I think it has another part, but I love that song. So cool, so trippy. That album when that came out, Colma, his like acoustic trip hop album or whatever you want to call that. It was so disappointing because I wanted something just insane and gnarly, and that came out and it was all a very low tempo, dynamic, chill, eerie album, and it has grown on me as it's like one of my favorite albums now. But so it goes. It's funny how that happens. Let's see what we've got here. There we go. That's what we need for today. That's what we need for today. So right into it. Where is this? Levels. There we go. Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix. So there's a quote that I've heard before, and it said, it goes, "The mark of greatness is that everything before you seems dated and everything after you bears your mark." And I feel like in Guitarland, never is that more appropriate than in the case of Jimi Hendrix. His rhythm playing in particular was, everything about it was amazing, but his rhythm playing is just absolutely beautiful. And his command of the fretboard at whatever, 25 or 6 or 7 or whatever is just amazing. But let's get into some of these goodies. So let's talk about what we observe with this one. Let me know if you know this one. So great. Bold as Love, the album Axis, Bold as Love. What that means, I don't really know. But a lot of his lyrics were kind of out there. Like jellyfish floating and all this. I have no idea what you're talking about, but it's cool anyway. So on the surface of it, it may seem like far removed from things with which we're familiar, but it isn't. I just posted on Facebook one page of this lesson. It's a comprehensive lesson on Hendrixisms, basically. But you can relate this to a few things. I mean, if you're thinking about, step back and think about when we play chords on the guitar, maybe it's open chords, maybe it's power chords. Bar chords. And T draws, mostly from bar chords. But just to relate his style of playing to what you already know, let's just talk about bar chords for now. And there are a few different ways, but he would play with his thumb. He has these absolutely massive fingers. And if you think about your A major bar chord like this, and then just change it to play with your thumb, you get the Hendrix version. So what that allows you to do, he does it for a few reasons, but what it allows you to do is ornament with your pinky a little bit more effectively than if you were to just play like this. Because then you can turn that chord into a dominant 7 chord, which is not really desirable in most cases when you want an A. So that's one thing. You play with your thumb and it frees your pinky to do more. It avoids, or it will kind of solve the problem of playing a dominant 7 chord anytime you move your pinky. But beyond that, it really is a different voicing. So if you're playing this, as compared to, so we have, instead of 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1, you have 1, then we skip A, we mute A. 1, 3, 5, 1. So having this, it's like a little bit more thuddy. You know, hey guys, supposed to. So when he's doing this, what notes is he adding, basically? So here's our bar chord. Then he adds tension 9, 13, and sus4. So we have a 6-string root major chord. That's what he's adding. Okay. So you can think of this as it relates to the bar chord. You can think of it as it relates to pentatonic. Some of the things he does with that, like, so a lot of holding 2 notes and hammering on 1 instead of just that. And playing direct, you're missing a little bit of that, but yeah, the overtones in there and everything. But Westport, Connecticut, no thank you. So you can think of it as a bar chord and we're embellishing the bar chord, or you can think that we're embellishing pentatonic, or you can think triad. Here's our triad. And that's basically the 3 planes here that we're dealing with. You can draw from each of them. So you have bar chord with your thumb, you have your pentatonic derived embellishments, which we'll get more into, and then your triads. And it's a lot of the same thing. It's just what is your access point for it is really the point. So let's continue. If we're playing minor, 6-string root minor, let's say F sharp minor, what you could add to that chord, again, we're not playing it like this, we're playing it like this. So similarly, the 5th is coming out here. You don't get this power chord shape. You just have this. So what he would add to this, and when you think about like all the great neo soul playing, it's like so Hendrix derived. I mean, he's not the only person to play this kind of stuff, but he's probably the person to take it to just a level beyond. So when you hear all of that like neo soul, all that is like very, very Hendrix inspired. But if you listen to the old Motown stuff, like Steve Cropper on rhythm guitar, the session player, it's a lot of the same thing, but Hendrix just took it to another place. So if we think about this F sharp minor chord, similarly, we can add other tensions on this. But on the minor chord, and just to get to the point, the easiest way to think about it is probably here's F sharp minor, here's F sharp minor pentatonic. Then we just hammer on anything from F sharp minor pentatonic. Plus 9. So 9, F sharp, 9 on F sharp would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9. And then on the guitar, it's kind of a gray area because 9 would have to be up 2 octaves. It's really 2. 1, 2, 9, up another octave. 1, 2, up an octave is 9. Anyway, so you can just think, here's my chord. And you just think you're hammering on notes, available notes in minor pentatonic. and 9. So if we're to go between these two, and this would be a worthwhile exercise, would be and just get comfortable with it. So it can be a lot, and anything that we undertake in guitar land, we have to be able to conceptualize it in some way that's meaningful. We have to be able to physically do it in time, and we have to be able to hear it, preferably. And those things can happen out of order, but you would bite off a reasonable, you know, bite-sized chunk of this and just say, all right, well, I see these embellishments not super clearly, but let me play them in A. Okay. Then, okay, that's okay. Let me do A to F. Sharp minor. So that would be a way to practice it. That's 6-string root, bar chords, mixing bar chords, mixing pentatonics. One of the more important riffs that he does would be this one, which is an inversion. It's an embellishment on a major chord. Here's A major. Then here's this inversion of it. By the way, Julian Casper taught me all of this. So if you have any questions about that, that's where I learned all these goodies. And then through teaching this to like so many people over the years, I've kind of like distilled it down to its essence. But there's no substitute for learning just a ton of these. If you like Hendrix, like you like anything, learn half a dozen or more of his songs that have a lot of this heavily ornamented chord playing in it, like Bold as Love or Little Wing or Wind Cries Mary, that kind of thing. And then you can analyze what's happening, look at it and say, all right, well, it's this chord he's playing, here are the shapes he's playing around it, what are they? And then as you do that, and you test yourself by using that in the wild, right? Then it becomes yours. But you want to learn it, analyze it, assimilate it, and then make that jump between making it yours. This great quote I heard recently by Jiddu Krishnamurti, who was like a philosopher in sage. He said, "Analysis is a substitute for action." So don't let that be you. A lot of music nerds, theorists or just big music brain people will kind of get stuck on that, and it's just a means to have control over, in this case, like all of the tensions and goodies and everything on these chords. So you want to assimilate it and then use it, not just be like, well, he plays tension 9 and then it becomes tension 6. Anyway, so let's talk about this. Okay, so if we're playing A major, he does that all over the place. Everybody copies it. Everyone does that. Anyone who plays like saucy, like hip hop, neo soul, and anything that's like cool sounding, people like play that all the time, and it's just an embellishment on a major chord. And that one is absolutely worth knowing. So it doesn't really correlate strongly to like, here's a bar chord, here's your pentatonic scale, here's your, I guess it does correlate to triad. I just don't know. If you have your triads down cold, you probably don't need me to tell you this. You know what I mean? But here would be A. So it's a first inversion triad. Instead of it being 1, 3, 5, A, C sharp, E, it's C sharp, E, A. But instead of it being here, across, it's a longer string set, which is more useful and more difficult to see. that's a pattern on the guitar. Like the way to conceptualize something or observe it so that it makes sense, like a major scale, is not the way to use it. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, so let's move this to fifth string root. We did our sixth string root, major and minor. We used, our tensions as embellishments. We drew from pentatonic, drew from our triads. That's the three ways we're approaching this. Here's the chord, bar chord embellishments, pentatonic embellishments, and triad embellishments. And they're all like overlapping. They're all like the same thing. It's just what shape makes sense to you. So here's D, and here would be our D chord. And this one, he's not really barring this. But he does do this all the time. You think, hey Joe? Hammering on, he bars everything, and then hammers on that third finger bar. And often it's just root, fifth root. It's not like, it's certainly not, hello, hello. No. So the tensions that would fall within this D shape, assuming that you have this down, we don't have to like analyze that any further, just fine. So the tensions that would fall here that you would sus to be sus4. And that's kind of it. I mean, you could reach for the stacked fifths thing. That's just not very Hendrix. Whatever that is. He doesn't really do that. But he would play hammer on, then hammer on sus4, and then this same, but in D. So another worthwhile exercise to do would be, all right, let's go between A and D, assuming that that's accessible enough. If it's not, just do one of those chords. Let's wait on that. So here's D. Now you could go, that's tried and true, this. Maybe not. When he does, he just does that a bit, but I mean, certainly compared to everything else we've covered, less so. It's that classic thing in Little Wing. Or whatever. So we have on this inversion, sus4, 9, and then 6 or 13. 6, 13. Flat 13 there. So if we just pick some of those and go between A and D, that's a worthwhile exercise. Because you want to like feel yourself trying, like throwing it against the wall in time, and maybe make it, maybe you don't, but you want that time element to keep going. So A, 2 bars of A, 2 bars of D. Something like that. And you just loop that and familiarize yourself with all of these goodies, like what feels good underneath your fingertips. What do you like the sound of? And through that process, it kind of becomes yours. So I just posted one page of this on Facebook. It's a lesson on Guitarmalade's Facebook page. It's a lesson I'm working on, but basically Hendrix's rhythm playing and the goodies that he uses. So it's like bar chord with tensions, 9, 13, 11, or sus4. Pentatonic shapes. Or triads. Just to illustrate that. So, and then beyond that, like a couple caveats, like you would hammer this, and then this first inversion thing. Anyway, so let's go over these triads. A major would be like this. And you think about like what notes are contiguous there. So if you have A, sus4, 13, 9 if you go down here. So it's like more than half of the bar chord already. Then you could play 9 here if you wanted to. That's a little salty for a Hendrix song, but I'm sure he has done it. But on a major chord, you have 1, 3, 5, and then your tensions are going to be 9, 11, 13, basically. So let's see where they are up here. sus4, 9, 13. Now, it sounds a little different because it's a different voicing, but it puts you in a different place in the neck, and it feels different. So that might be the real motivating factor, interestingly, more so than exactly how it sounds. It might be more like situational. You want to be here, and that's what's available. Anyway, next one. For second inversion, A. So you would have sus4, 9, 13, or 6. So that is a lot of information. You have to know 5th and 6th string group bar chords, major, minor, and then all the tensions around them. You have to know major, minor, pentatonic, and feel comfy hammering on those goodies. You have to see all your tried inversions and then see the notes that are available to hammer on, the same tensions, just in different places. But that's going to give you, a really good look at this. As far as triads go, it takes a while to get the whole neck and everything. So I would say defer to, string set D, G, B. It's like the sweet spot. And especially with this kind of playing, you're probably going to be occupying that space more so than others. And if you see this, you can easily translate it down and then or back up. And that's almost all of the triads you would need if you're here. It's a D. D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. And this. So if you've been playing the guitar for a while, these shapes will come up and be like, oh, well, this, I know that shape from. I know the shapes from Under the Bridge. And Jean Frusciante is a total Hendrix student of Hendrix, like Hendrix nerd. So all of that you hear, maybe that's clear, maybe it's not clear to you, but all of his approach to rhythm playing is just totally. I mean, saying a Jimi Hendrix ripoff is just doesn't sound right, but it is. Again, the mark of greatness is everything after you bears your mark, and that's a perfect example of Jean Frusciante. So if you're talking about that song in particular, it's a great example of the Hendrix stuff done well later. And it's a weird song. We won't get into that unless you really want to, but one distinct difference between how Hendrix does his chords most of the time and Jean Frusciante is Hendrix would, as I mentioned, mute that A string. Like here's an A chord. Jean Frusciante will often play the 5th like this. So when he goes, sorry. So when he goes, you hear that note in there. I guess he's just a little ham-fisted with it, and when you reach for the note that would be a crunchy, it's not playing that, it's not playing dominant 7, but the note that would be, clash dominant 7 in there, he's muting. Just when he lifts off this finger, It's just nothing there. So Hendrix would very often just omit the A string, and you get this study. But John Frusciante, almost all the time, would play it. I can't think of. I know I've transcribed other John Frusciante songs, and he's done that. I can't play them off the top of my head, but um, yeah, great. Um, I guess you could relate this to Caged if you want to, but I mean, it's just all the same thing. We're just describing different names to it. We're just thinking of it from a different perspective. I mean, if you're thinking about A major with tension 9, 11, 13, or you're thinking of it as like this triad shape, and then you're hammering on contiguous available close by tensions, it's like the same thing. Or if you think about pentatonic, it's largely the same thing. So it's just so, yeah, that ornamentation is just so compelling and beautiful. What else is there to say about this? You have to be careful about the analysis. Again, I heard this quote recently by Alan Watts, and he goes on this whole long thing about music, and he's talking about how did it go? He said something to the effect of, people go to music school hoping that if they study, they come up with the rules based on famous composers, and they study and they emulate the rules of exhibited by these famous composers, the compositional devices and patterns, that if they do that, that they will come out of school and be first-rate musicians, but they almost never succeed in doing that, because it really fundamentally, if you don't have something to say, um, then there's just being good at the theory of it isn't really going to help you. Um, you know, if you understand music composition, like all of the devices and all of the the things that would determine whether something's like Baroque or Hendrix or whatever, understanding that and being able to do it on some like level is not going to make you an artist unless you are a good artist anyway, unless you're very creative and have something to say anyway. There's some other, he's put it certainly way better than that, but that one really resonated with me. Anyway, that's all we have time for today. Look for this lesson when it's done out in the wild. Like I said, the first sheet, which is basically what we went over today, is up on the Facebook page. And yeah, have a lovely day.